I'm going to show you some calculator tricks for those velocity problems where you have to scoot closer and closer and closer to a particular number. I will show you the problem, I will show you the work on paper, and then I will show you the calculator tips to do this really efficiently. This should come from, if you're using a Stewart book, 2.1, number 5 in the physical textbook. Here's what the problem looks like. Math to follow. They provide us with t is equal to 2 seconds, and then the first question they ask us is what happens when it's a half a second later than that. What I want you to watch out for is it's not 2 as your first t value, and the second one is 0.5, but it's 2 and then 2.5 because it's beyond that. So what we're going to do is a slope formula, and we're going to do the slope formula a bunch of times, but they don't give us the y values explicitly. They don't give us the f of t values. So we have to figure out what our t values are and then plug them into the function to get the y values, and then we can do the slope formula, which is on screen. Here it is again. You have to do a second slope. Same stuff, just now with the 2.1. And at this point, I got lazy because we're going to do the slope formula 2 more times, and it's just a rinse-repeat kind of situation. I have it in my calculator. I know that you're a student, so you actually have to write it all on paper, but it's the slope formula a bunch of times. And then the second thing they ask us is, what are we getting really, really close to? And that would be negative 24 feet per second. So you can make an educated guess once you see what we're inching closer and closer and closer to. And that's the calculus part. After speed running the math, then let's talk about the actual calculator skills. I want you to be able to type in a function. I want you to be able to make an XY chart and also use the fraction key. There's a bonus skill at the end. Also watch my calculator keystrokes because as I'm typing things, you'll see the button because it will turn red. First of all, I'm going to type in the equation right here. This y equals, I'm going to use an x instead of the t. Calculator likes it better. 40, the x is right here, minus 16 x squared. All right, we could look at the graph, but we don't really care a whole lot. The most important thing to us right now is the XY chart. So even though the graph, we could find it somewhere over there, the second in graph is going to give us an XY chart, which is going to be the useful thing to us. Now, something that is unuseful about this is that it picks values for us. So here's how we're going to change it. And this is going to change in the settings until you reset your RAM. So it'll stay there when you turn your calculator off. Now, second and table is where you find the actual XY chart, but second and window is where you find your table settings. The thing that we want to change here is independent needs to be on ask. So go to ask, click enter until that one's the one that's highlighted. And what that does for us, go back to second and hit the graph button, is it lets us pick our own X values and we can type them in. Now, according to the work that I was showing you a second ago, then we know what X values to put in. We know to put in a 2, 2.5, 2.1, 2.05, and then 2.01. So these are the X values that we need, and we want to get the Y values that come along with them. So it's evaluating whatever function I put in here at whatever X value I typed in here. There is one thing that I want you to watch out for right here. There are not enough spaces, so that 4 that's down here is important. And that's how you get all of your Y values. But also, something that I would like for you to do is make sure to use the alpha y equals enter key whenever you're dealing with a slope. Alpha y equals and enter. And this is going to be your 15.7584. I included the work on paper so that you can see where all these things are coming from. But as far as the calculation is concerned, there's that over. Now when I did it myself, I just typed in 0.01 because that's the space between them by definition. But this is what it would look like if you're doing all the work the right way. So we get to that point, that should match the work. And you're just going to do that repeatedly. But we love that alpha y equals enter key. Now, you don't need any more than that. You're just going to have to do that 4 more times to match all of that other work. If you want one more extra fancy pants skill, then I would even do this. So first of all, if I'm looking at a slope, I'm going to put that fraction key in there. And then I'm going to go extra fancy with it. vars, y vars, function, the thing I already typed in y1. It was what we typed in here to begin with. And then I put my 2.01 in there like that, minus, I'm going to do it again, vars, y vars, and then this is 2. Looks like I did not get my minus in there properly. Whoops. I'm using this on a laptop instead of on the actual machine. There we go. Okay. I want to insert a minus, so second, and the delete key will let me insert so that I don't have to retype everything. This notation right here is just like your f of x, and then you put in a number. So, if you want to evaluate f of 3, then you would type in the y1 of 3, and here I'm going to evaluate y1 of 2. The y1 is whatever I put in here at the beginning. That has to be in there to begin with, and then the space between them is 0.01. It gives me the same answer. So this is just me avoiding that XY chart completely, but that just requires more button pushing and not really any understanding of mathematics. This is the idea that you're expected to learn in here.